All right. All right. Well, I have nothing better to do, so I think I'm just going to start a bit of an art stream here. I was thinking about putting on some mood music, but I'll try just drawing it right now. Uh, Let me get back to where was I? Okay, I was shading. I think I was shading. Let me make sure I got the right color selected. Using a real pencil for this, quote unquote real pencil. That's I think pretty obviously the name of. Well, it should be. Uh, uh, Pencil I'm using, but when you forget to actually to the color in the right layer, it does nothing. Now that I'm, you're going to hear dogs in the background. I hope that isn't too bad. Let me pull up the stream so I can see the chat if there's anyone who joins. So this is the Spar development streams. Currently I'm shading the lead character of Spar. Or not the lead character, really. He's just kind of, he was my basis, like the first ever draft or like concept of the game. I used this character. Like, or the moveset that would become this character's. So let me also add Arif to make this. I never actually did shading on. So it's a little misleading that I'm shading right now because I actually started by shading everything to make sure I had all the contours and everything looking nice. And then I colored it all in, which is the inverse of how I did my webcomic Neon Dynamo. Neon Dynamo, I like doing color first, setting up shading and contours in line art, and then following through. But with this, it just felt more natural to do this art style this way. I'm also going to add some like licks of stuff like that. I have no clue what actually counts as a concurrent viewer in YouTube's definition. What's the... Okay, if I go back to shading. Okay. Let me start adding, following the contours of the flame. I'm now adding some detail to the flame. And right now I'm just adding to the outside. I have no clue who's... I feel like I should have put... I was thinking about putting like some music on this. But I'm a little unsure. I don't know how I got the green there, but it's interesting. I'm going to try and... I really like how this... So I did some in the middle there, too. To show, like, reflectivity. Oh, I did this on lighting. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. I am an amateur board game and artist. But board game developer and artist, for a bit of context. And this is kind of my dream board game being... or just my board game concept I have in general being developed live. Sort of. There's a full year of background to this before I got to this point where it was like of me testing the game, figuring out some of my friends said, yeah, this is actually a bit of a fun game. I could probably get at least a copy sold, which, hey, is a milestone to me. Let's see. Okay, so now I think I'm ready to move on to lighting. Now, let's Let's add just a little bit of the kind of effect there. We're averaging at 1 viewer, which I assume to be myself. And okay. All right. So in my opinion, I need to get closer. I'll go a slightly darker version of this. I don't want to overwrite what I already have on it a bit too much. So I'm instead going to kind of like just like kind of shade over it like that. And also let's get some darkening. I know I'm shading on the coloring layer. And that's not getting enough effect done. I want to actually go like that. And it's still a bit too colorful. Okay, that's now a bit too blue. And okay, we're good. I've never really had success with art streams before, but I feel like if I'm going to be doing this, I work best when I'm just in silence or like talking to myself. So this is just a way. This is more for my own sake. Alright, so I'm going to have to change up how I'm doing the shading objectively on the die. I started doing this kind of concept before, but now it's just not working out. It's let me what was lighting that I've done? Did a bit of lighting on the body. Okay, there's not really much lighting. We do. There we go. Let me try, and also let me just get rid of this shading inside in general. This shading is just not great on the die. What's with that color blurring like together? Is that, oh, it's because, oh yeah, because I shaded a bit on the other layer, so that's why. I want to replicate that. This is a slightly different design, and this was more of me just trying to figure out the art style, but I like how the die ended up looking. Which I'm going to try to replicate. And I have no viewers, so I don't feel like I need to explain how Spar works. I'll explain that if someone's ever like, oh, what's the board game's rules? How does this all work? I'll get to, nope. I'll get to that when someone actually asks. Otherwise, this is pretty much just an art stream that happens to be for a board game. Yes. Just to finish something I mentioned, Sixer was the first ever kind of concept I had for the game. And now, and then I kind of like, because it was originally supposed to be like, oh, you have 6 health, and I was just playing a die on like a board, and you have cards, but instead of being like Yu-Gi-Oh or Magic cards where you play them, discard them, and like so on, I was like, what if the cards were instead like actions, like they were almost like an RPG actions, like the 4 moves you pick in Pokemon, for example, and you didn't discard the cards, that was just what you did for that turn. and then that affects how you interact on the board and all this and all that. And it was just two Sixers. This character's name is Sixer. Duking it out on a board. And then I was like, well, what if I made other characters other die values? So like an 8-sided die character, a 4th-sided die character, and so on. And now there's a 4th, 6th, 8th, 10th, 12th, and 20th sided die character, and that represents their max health and starting health. And each of them have their own 5-card move sets, and they interact on the board. It's kind of like chess meets rock paper scissors. That's the explanation I go with to get people to understand kind of how it works. If they're not familiar with RPGs, I mean, this is I guess effectively a tactical RPG board game, for like lack of a better term. Like, if this was a video game, it would be a tactical RPG. But it's a board game, and I've found a way to reduce the game, which was the reason I say the game technically is a year in development is because I just didn't have a way to actually make the game. I had like a whole row of art assets and all that, and like characters, and I was obsessed with finding a publisher, and like funding and like a professional artist and all that, or like just basically I was I'm not going to say cheat the system at all, because that's not what I was trying to do. I was trying to do things the traditional way of you make a concept and you sell the concept, and then the person you sell it to does the proper shit. But I've just kind of realized that that's not going to get me anywhere at my age and experience for a while. So let's see, what the fuck did I do for the shading here? Like, if I undo the shading, it's a bit lighter. It's actually like a palish whitish blue, not darker. Which, I mean, makes some level of sense. So, let me try... This will just speed up the process a little bit, because I don't feel like recoloring it. I don't like having to do this, because it sometimes causes some issues. Like, you can see I still have to do, like, all the, like, filling in here and stuff, so it doesn't save, like, that much actual time. But it's just a little bit, just because I've already colored this in, like, 5 times. So let's see, is even that, like... That's more accurate to what I did, and also reflects his actual, like, the actual color of his die a bit more. Sixer is, he's kind of like if there's, like, flesh and, like, stone and golems and all like that, Sixer is basically a dice golem. Because each of the characters actually does have a little bit of, like, lore and story to them. I wonder if a board game counts as a game theory. There's not really much of a theory to do for Sparks. That's kind of upfront about all the stuff. Like, because each character has their 5 action cards, and then they have a 6th card, which is their, like, their kind of like a character card, which gives them a passive, like a trait that always applies, and a bit of their lore, and just a full body shot of art. To, like, work with. And Sixer's in Sixer's lore, he's pretty much a dice golem. And the lore is pretty generally upfront about, like, what's going on, who these people are, like, why would some of them fight? Because that's sometimes, like, it doesn't, for a board game, it doesn't really matter. Especially if it's, like, a combative board game like this. Why the characters are fighting. Because it's, like, who cares? But I thought, since I have technically, like, extra space, that's a bit big. I want to smooth this out. I don't really like... I think these circles are just a bit too rough. Sixer circles are definitely going to be the most obnoxious thing about him to draw. Just because I have to draw a whole, like, set of circles in a character, and they have to account for perspective, and it's like... That's not fun. So, oops. That's not what I wanted to do. So let's see. So for Sixer's art, I did, like, this weird spiral thing I was going for. Like, what the... Like I said, what the hell was I doing for his fire? I mean, it looks cool. I like how it turned out. But it's kind of hard for me to process, like, just what exactly is going on. So let's try adding, like, is this what I did? I did, like, a ring here of, like, dark shading, and then I, like, colored in all of his, like, I shaded all of his dots. So that gave him, like, a bit of texture to, like, work with. And something I clearly didn't do here was I didn't really match up that much the side, because a die, like, the shading of a four-sided die is kind of weird if you look at it, because, like, each of the sides kind of reflect a bit of their own thing, especially if they're surrounded by something. So, like, all of these sides would loosely, like, mirror the same kind of style of shading. Let me scroll down a bit here to the shading, and now let's see. So I was doing, like, this. Like, do I actually have to go, like, where is the line art in my concept art? Because now I'm wondering that. This is also, it's hard to, okay, it's the very top. So it's just because the line art is so thin. I'm going to try to do this without going over, like, the line art itself. Because it's a bit more convenient if I don't have to do that, like, for every single piece of art that Sixer has. It also creates a bit more consistency with how I handle art and shading. I also, maybe I need to make this darker because it doesn't quite look like it's the same flame. It does in the dots, but it doesn't really in the, like, actual art itself. Or in the actual die itself, like the primary die. If Sixer could talk, I would feel like he would totally say something like, "It's time to die," but I don't think he's not that punny. He would be like, someone would say that to him, and if he could talk, he was just like, "Yeah, just fuck off." Sixer's like that. Or, like, I would say he's kind of like that. Okay, so I think this is kind of what I did. This kind of gives this sort of, like, bloom, like, a glowy effect to it. Like, it kind of creates this, like, idea that it's like, oh, the flame is, like, the source of it, I guess. Okay. There we go. Now we're actually starting to get like somewhere with the art. Now I want to actually add a bit more like darker blue like shading in there to pop everything out a bit more. Let me actually maybe do it a bit here. There just needs to be a bit more contrast with the like shading some for it to like really work. My opinion. Okay, so to really get this to look nice, I'm going to add a bit of I'm going to weaken the outlines of the die itself a bit with blue flame, with like the blue kind of coloring, to give it kind of this more glow effect. That looks objectively better, especially if I do it like here. Now let's move on to the actual like lighting. So Sixer's flame does obviously carry a light. It is an actual like light source. So I have to like actually give it like a glow. Let me lessen the size. Try to give this kind of glow to it. That looks nice. I'll even add a bit of glow to. I'll just add more like glow in general to him. This. It will cut it, but I'll cut it off at like about there. That should be about the visual limits of the glow. Now I'll add a bit of, it's hard to like see here because I haven't fully added like effects yet to this. But this spear is going to have a bit of a glow to it. Let me give it like a really pronounced like kind of like sheen here. Like a real sense of like it all kind of like pointing together. And to make it like seem more like an actual spear weapon, to give everything just a touch more depth. If it would let. Okay, my computer's lagging now. Or my art program is.